If you add up all the goals you've quit on in the past 5 years, you'd have a completely different life right now. Think about that for a moment. The business you started and abandoned, the fitness routine you began and stopped, the skill you were learning until it got difficult, the relationship you walked away from when it required effort. Every single one of those quits seemed reasonable at the time. You had good reasons. You told yourself compelling stories about why it wasn't working. But here's the brutal truth. Those weren't reasons, they were excuses. And every time you quit, you didn't just lose that specific goal. You reinforced a pattern that's now controlling your entire life. You trained your mind that when things get uncomfortable, quitting is an acceptable option. Now that pattern runs automatically. The moment difficulty appears, your brain offers you the exit door and you take it without even realizing what you're doing. Until you break this pattern. Until you build a mind that refuses to quit. Nothing in your life will fundamentally change. You know what separates someone who builds an extraordinary life from someone who settles for mediocrity? It's not talent, it's not luck, it's not even opportunity. It's the ability to keep going when everything inside you screams to stop. Right now, as you're reading this. There's something in your life you're thinking about quitting. Maybe it's a business you started that hasn't taken off yet. Maybe it's a fitness goal that seems impossible. Maybe it's a relationship that requires more work than you anticipated. Maybe it's a skill you're trying to master, and you're not progressing as fast as you hoped. That voice in your head keeps whispering the same message. This is too hard. Maybe you're not cut out for this. Maybe it's time to try something easier. Here's the brutal truth nobody wants to hear. The moment you quit is the moment you guarantee failure. Not trying and failing, but actually succeeding becomes impossible the second you walk away. And here's what's even more devastating. Every time you quit something, you're not just abandoning that particular goal. You're training your mind that quitting is an acceptable response to difficulty. You're creating a pattern. You're building a habit. And that habit will follow you into every area of your life. Think about this for a moment. Studies show that 92% of people who set goals never achieve them. 92%. That means only 8 out of every 100 people who start something actually finish it. What happens to the other 92? They quit. They give up. They convince themselves it wasn't meant to be. They tell themselves a story about why it didn't work. And then they move on to the next thing, where the same pattern repeats itself. The average person starts and quits approximately 17 different goals each year. 17. That's more than one per month. New Year's resolutions, Monday morning fresh starts, first of the month commitments. They all follow the same trajectory. Excitement, effort, difficulty, doubt, and then disappearance. The dream dies not because it was impossible, but because the person carrying it decided it was too uncomfortable to continue. Now let me ask you something. How much of your potential have you left on the table because you quit too soon? How many times have you been 30 days away from a breakthrough but walked away after 29? How many versions of success were within your grasp, but you loosened your grip just before you could grab hold? The gap between where you are right now and where you want to be isn't filled with things you need to learn or resources you need to acquire. It's filled with all the times you stopped when you should have kept going. Your mind, by default, is designed to quit. That's not a flaw, that's biology. Your brain's primary job is to keep you alive. And keeping you alive means conserving energy. Thousands of years ago, when our ancestors were hunting and gathering, the ones who survived were the ones who didn't waste energy on unnecessary efforts. Your brain still operates on that ancient programming. Whenever you attempt something difficult, your brain sends out warning signals. It tells you you're tired. It tells you it's not worth it. It tells you to stop and conserve your resources for something more important. But here's what your brain doesn't understand. In the modern world, the biggest threat to your survival isn't running out of energy. It's running out of time while living below your potential. The real danger isn't trying and failing. It's succeeding at things that don't matter while never attempting the things that do. Building a mind that won't quit starts with one fundamental principle, and this is where most people get it wrong from the very beginning. You need absolute clarity about what you're trying to achieve. Not a vague idea, not a general direction, not a wish or a hope. You need crystal clear, written down, specific targets. When you say you want to get in shape, your mind has no idea what that means. Get in shape compared to what? By when? According to whose standards? That vagueness creates a loophole your mind will use to let you off the hook. But when you say, I will weigh 170 pounds with 15% body fat by December 31st, and I will achieve this by exercising 5 days per week and eating a planned menu that I prepare every Sunday. Well, your mind knows exactly what's expected. There's no room for negotiation. There's no ambiguity. This is what I call your definite major purpose. It's the one thing that, if you accomplished it, would make everything else in your life easier or irrelevant. Most people drift through life without ever identifying this. They scatter their energy across dozens of different desires, making a little progress here and a little progress there, but never building enough momentum in any single direction to create a real breakthrough. Write down your definite major purpose right now, not later, not when you have time to think about it more carefully. Right now. Get a piece of paper or open a note on your phone and complete this sentence. My definite major purpose is to then. And then be specific. Include numbers, include dates, include measurable standards. When you have clarity, something remarkable happens. Your mind shifts from asking, should I do this, to asking, how do I do this? The question is no longer whether you'll take action. The question becomes what action to take next. Confusion is what kills commitment when you don't know exactly where you're going. Every obstacle looks like a good reason to turn around. But when you know precisely what you're aiming for, obstacles become puzzles to solve, not excuses to quit. The foundation of a mind that won't quit is built on this clarity. It's built on knowing what you want so specifically that your daily decisions become obvious. Should you hit the snooze button? Not if you're clear that your morning routine is non-negotiable. Should you skip today's work session? Not if you're clear that your goal requires consistent daily action. Should you give up when things get hard? Not if you're clear that the difficulty is temporary, but the achievement is permanent. This is where your transformation begins. Not with motivation, not with inspiration, not with feeling ready. It begins with clarity. It begins with knowing exactly what you're building and refusing to let anything pull you away from that vision until it becomes your reality. Now that you have clarity about what you want, we need to address the real problem. The problem isn't that you don't know what to do. The problem is that you've been programmed since childhood to quit when things get uncomfortable. And until you understand this programming and deliberately overwrite it, you'll keep repeating the same patterns no matter how clear your goals are. Think back to when you were a child. Remember when you tried something new and it didn't work immediately? Maybe you tried to ride a bike and fell. Maybe you tried to read and stumbled over words. Maybe you tried to play an instrument and it sounded terrible. What happened next? If you're like most people, someone told you, that's okay, you don't have to do it if you don't want to. Or maybe they said, not everyone is good at everything, or perhaps maybe this isn't for you. Those words, spoken with good intentions, installed a program in your mind. They taught you that quitting is a reasonable response to difficulty. They taught you that struggle means you're in the wrong place. They taught you that if something doesn't come naturally, it's acceptable to walk away. And you've been running that program ever since. Every time you quit something as an adult, you're not making a fresh decision. You're running old software. You're executing a program that was written decades ago by people who didn't understand what you were truly capable of achieving. And here's the critical part. That program runs automatically unless you consciously interrupt it and install something new. Well, the way you change this is through deliberate repetition of a new message. When your mind says, this is too hard, let's quit, you need a prepared response. You need to say, this is exactly where growth happens. This discomfort is the price of improvement. I am someone who pushes through difficulty. You need to say it out loud. You need to say it with conviction. And you need to say it every single time that old program tries to run. This isn't positive thinking. This is mental conditioning. Athletes do this. Military special forces do this. High performers in every field do this. They recognize the moment when their mind suggests quitting. And they have a rehearsed response that redirects their focus back to the task. Do this consistently for 30 days and you'll notice something remarkable. The voice suggesting you quit becomes quieter. It appears less frequently. Eventually, your default response to difficulty shifts from how can I get out of this to how can I get through this. But here's something most people miss entirely. Your mental toughness is directly connected to your physical state. You cannot build an unquittable mind in a body that's depleted, exhausted, and running on empty. This isn't optional. This is fundamental. When you're sleep deprived, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for decision making and self-control, functions at a dramatically reduced capacity. Studies show that getting less than 7 hours of sleep has the same effect on your cognitive performance as being legally drunk. You wouldn't try to build a business while intoxicated, but millions of people try to do it while chronically sleep deprived and wonder why they can't maintain consistency. When you eat processed foods loaded with sugar and chemicals, your blood sugar spikes and crashes throughout the day, taking your energy and focus with it. When you sit all day without movement, your body interprets this as a signal that you're in conservation mode, and it reduces your energy output accordingly. When you skip exercise, you're not just losing physical fitness, you're losing the mental clarity, stress resilience, and emotional stability that come from regular physical activity. Every single high achiever I've studied has a morning routine, not because they read it in a book and thought it sounded nice, because they discovered through experience that how you start your day determines how you perform throughout your day. If you wake up rushed, reactive, and unprepared, you'll spend the entire day in that same state. If you wake up with intention, with a plan, and with your mind and body primed for performance, everything becomes easier. Your morning routine doesn't need to be complicated. Wake up at the same time every day, drink water immediately, move your body for at least 20 minutes, eat a high-protein breakfast, review your goals and your plan for the day. That's it. 5 simple things that take less than 90 minutes but completely change your mental state and your ability to persist through challenges. Now let's talk about discipline, because this is where most people get it completely wrong. They think discipline means forcing yourself to do things you don't want to do through sheer willpower. That's exhausting and unsustainable. Real discipline is about creating systems that make the right actions automatic. Think about brushing your teeth. You don't need motivation to do it. You don't need to give yourself a pep talk. You just do it because it's part of your routine. It's automatic. That's what you need to do with the actions that move you toward your goals. You need to make them so routine, so automatic, so built into your daily schedule that doing them requires less effort than not doing them. Start with one small action, not 10, not 5, 1. Let's say your goal is to write a book. Your small action is writing for 15 minutes every morning before you check your phone. That's it. Not 2 hours, not a full chapter, 15 minutes. Do this every single day for 30 days, no exceptions, no negotiations. If you're sick, write for 15 minutes. If you have a busy day ahead, write for 15 minutes first. What happens after 30 days? That action becomes part of your identity. You become someone who writes every morning. And here's the beautiful part. Once something becomes part of your identity, you don't need to convince yourself to do it anymore. You just do it because that's who you are. This is the compound effect in action. Small actions repeated consistently create massive results over time. One workout doesn't transform your body, but one workout every day for a year completely changes it. One sales call doesn't build a business, but one sales call every day for a year builds an empire. One page doesn't write a book, but one page every day for a year creates a manuscript. The mind that won't quit isn't built in a single moment of heroic effort. It's built in thousands of small moments where you choose to continue when continuing feels hard. It's built every morning when you wake up and execute your routine regardless of how you feel. It's built every time you complete your minimum daily standard even when you don't want to. It's built through repetition until persistence becomes who you are, not just what you do. There's a concept I want you to understand that will completely change how you approach your goals. It's called the 20-mile march, and it comes from studying expeditions to the South Pole. Two teams set out to reach the pole. One team pushed as hard as they could on good weather days, sometimes covering 40 or 50 miles. On bad weather days, they rested and stayed in their tents. The other team marched exactly 20 miles every single day, regardless of conditions. Good weather, bad weather, tired, energized. It didn't matter. 20 miles. Every single day. Which team do you think won? The consistent team. And they didn't just win, they dominated. While the first team exhausted themselves with extreme effort followed by extreme rest, the consistent team built unstoppable momentum. They knew exactly what to expect from themselves every day. Their bodies adapted, their minds adapted. Their progress was predictable and reliable. This is the secret that separates people who achieve extraordinary things from people who burn out trying. Consistency beats intensity every single time. Not some days, every time. You don't need to work 18-hour days. You don't need to sacrifice your health and relationships. You don't need superhuman effort. You need steady, reliable, persistent action toward your target. Set a minimum daily standard for yourself. Not a maximum, a minimum. This is the amount of work you'll do on your worst day. Maybe it's 30 minutes on your business, maybe it's 10 pages of reading, maybe it's 5 sales calls, whatever it is, make it achievable even when you're tired, even when you're busy, even when you don't feel like it. Then do that minimum every single day without exception. On days when you have more energy, more time, more motivation, you can do more. But you never do less than your minimum. This creates a floor beneath you. You can't fall below it. And over time, that minimum standard, executed day after day, creates results that look miraculous to people who don't understand the process. Now let's address what happens when things go wrong, because they will. You're going to face setbacks. You're going to fail. You're going to have days when, despite your best efforts, nothing works. This is guaranteed. The question isn't whether you'll face failure. The question is what you'll do in the 24 hours after failure hits. Here's a rule that will protect you from the spiral of defeat. When something goes wrong, you get 24 hours to feel whatever you need to feel. Disappointment, frustration, anger, sadness, all of it is valid. Feel it fully. Don't suppress it. Don't pretend it doesn't hurt. But when those 24 hours are up, you're done processing, you shift from feeling to analyzing. What went wrong? What can I learn from this? What will I do differently next time? And then you take action based on those answers. Most people do the opposite. They take immediate action while they're still emotional, making reactive decisions that make things worse, or they get stuck in analysis paralysis, thinking about what went wrong for weeks and months without ever moving forward again. Neither approach works. Give yourself time to feel, then switch to strategic thinking, then return to action. 24 hours. That's your window. Every failure is data. Every setback is feedback. Every mistake is a lesson. But only if you extract the lesson and apply it. Otherwise, it's just pain without purpose. Winners and losers face the same failures. The difference is winners ask better questions. Losers ask, why does this always happen to me? Winners ask, What does this teach me, and how do I use it? Let me tell you about Timothy. He worked in construction, physical labor, tough conditions, long hours. At 45 years old, he was 50 pounds overweight, exhausted every evening, and watching his health decline. He decided to make a change. He started by walking 1 block, that's all, 1 block after work, before he went inside his house. The next week, 2 blocks. The week after that, 3 blocks. People laughed at him. 1 block? That's not exercise. That's just walking to the mailbox. But Timothy understood something they didn't. He wasn't training his body yet. He was training his mind. He was proving to himself that he could keep a commitment. 6 months later, he was jogging 3 miles. A year later, he ran his first 10-kilometer race. 18 months later, he completed a half marathon. At 48 years old, he ran a full marathon. His co-workers couldn't believe it. How did a construction worker in his late 40s become a marathon runner? Here's what's even more remarkable. Timothy applied the same principle to his finances. Started with saving $5 per week, then 10, then 20. He used that money to take a real estate course. Started with 1 small rental property, then another, then another. 5 years after walking that first block, Timothy owned 6 rental properties and left construction to manage his real estate business full-time. 1 block became a marathon. $5 became financial freedom. Small, consistent actions compounded into a completely transformed life. Your environment is either supporting your persistence or destroying it. Look around your space right now. What do you see? If your goal is to write, is there a clear workspace with your tools ready? If your goal is fitness, is there workout equipment visible, or is it buried in a closet? If your goal is building a business, is your desk organized or chaotic? Everything in your environment is either making it easier to persist or easier to quit. Remove the friction from good behaviors and add friction to bad ones. If you want to stop wasting time on your phone, put it in another room when you work. If you want to exercise in the morning, put your workout clothes next to your bed. If you want to eat healthy, don't buy junk food in the first place. Don't rely on willpower to resist temptation. Remove the temptation entirely. Surround yourself with people who won't let you quit. Not people who are always positive and never challenge you. People who hold you accountable. People who've done what you're trying to do. People who call you out when you're making excuses. You become like the 5 people you spend the most time with. If those 5 people are complainers who quit when things get hard, you'll do the same. If those 5 people are persistent achievers who push through difficulty, you'll rise to their standard. Make public commitments. Tell people what you're doing. Post your goals where others can see them. This creates social pressure that works in your favor. When you're the only one who knows about your goal, quitting is easy. Nobody knows, nobody cares. But when you've told 10 people, when you've posted it online, when you've made it public, quitting becomes embarrassing. Use that embarrassment as fuel. Most people overestimate what they can accomplish in 1 year and drastically underestimate what they can accomplish in 10 years. This is the mistake that causes more disappointment and premature quitting than anything else. You set a massive goal. Work hard for 6 months, don't see the results you expected, and conclude it's not working. But you're not playing a 6-month game. You're playing a 10-year game. Every significant achievement worth pursuing takes longer than you think it will. Writing a book takes longer than you think. Building a profitable business takes longer than you think. Transforming your body takes longer than you think. Mastering a skill takes longer than you think. Not because you're slow or incompetent, but because real mastery and real achievement simply require time. There's no way around it. There are no shortcuts. There's only the patient accumulation of daily progress. When you understand this, everything changes. You stop looking for quick wins and start building lasting excellence. You stop comparing your progress to others and start measuring against your own baseline. You stop feeling discouraged by slow progress and start trusting the process. The people who achieve extraordinary things aren't necessarily more talented than you. They're just willing to stay in the game longer than you currently are. But here's what you need to understand about playing the long game. You cannot sustain maximum effort for 10 years. You'll burn out, you'll break down, you'll quit. Long-term excellence requires strategic recovery. There's a massive difference between resting because you're lazy and resting because you're strategic. Lazy rest is avoidance. Strategic rest is preparation. Athletes understand this better than anyone. They don't train at maximum intensity every single day. They have hard days and easy days. They have training seasons and recovery seasons. They rest before they're forced to. They build recovery into their schedule so their body can adapt and grow stronger. Your mind works exactly the same way. Take one full day off every week, not to watch television and eat junk food, to genuinely rest and renew. Go for a walk in nature. Read something inspiring. Spend time with people you love. Do something creative that has nothing to do with your goals. This isn't wasted time. This is maintenance. This is sharpening the saw so it cuts better when you return to work. You also need mentors and accountability partners. People who've already done what you're trying to do. People who can show you the path and warn you about the obstacles ahead. Success leaves clues. And the fastest way to achieve your goals is to learn from someone who's already achieved them. Find someone 10 years ahead of you on the path you're walking. Study them, learn from them, model their behaviors and their thinking. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You just need to follow a proven pattern and adapt it to your situation. Most people waste years trying to figure everything out themselves when someone else could show them the way in a single conversation. Create a mastermind group. 3 to 5 people pursuing significant goals who meet regularly to share progress, solve problems, and hold each other accountable. When you surround yourself with people who are committed to excellence, you raise your own standards automatically. When everyone in your group is executing their minimum daily standard, you're not going to be the one who skips. When everyone is pushing through obstacles, you're not going to be the one who quits. Now, let me tell you about Helen. Single mother, 2 jobs, bills piling up, no college degree. At 32 years old, she enrolled in night classes to become a paralegal. Then she decided to go further, law school at night while working full-time, while raising a daughter alone. People told her it was impossible. People told her to be realistic. People told her she was being selfish, putting her daughter through this. She studied after her daughter went to bed. She studied on lunch breaks. She studied on weekends while her daughter did homework beside her. 6 years. That's how long it took. 6 years of exhaustion, 6 years of doubt, 6 years of wanting to quit almost daily. Her car broke down. She faced eviction twice. Her daughter got sick and missed weeks of school. Every reason to quit appeared multiple times. But Helen had a method. She called it just the next step. She didn't think about graduating. She didn't think about passing the bar exam. She just thought about the next assignment, the next class, the next study session, just the next step today. Helen is a successful attorney specializing in family law. She helps single mothers navigate legal challenges. She makes more money than she ever imagined. Her daughter just graduated college. And Helen says the same thing to everyone who asks her how she did it. I just never stopped taking the next step. That's the ultimate test of a mind that won't quit. When everything falls apart, when every reason to surrender presents itself, when logic says it's time to move on, you take the next step anyway.